All right, people. So, man, we are here again another Tuesday. I'm excited to share some of the things that I've been personally learning and exercising over the last couple of weeks. It's been super challenging for me. Um, Luigi and some of the others know that that first week of April is typically tough for me and my wife. It was the 11-year anniversary of our daughter passing away, and ironically, she passed away 11 years ago on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And so it was like, man, my faith was shattered, went through a lot. And so, you know, uh, um, it was a real heavy week for us. But, I'm really glad to be with you guys tonight and to connect and just to share some of those things, because some of the things that I've endured, what I'm about to share with you tonight is what enabled me to do it. And I want to get a little personal um tonight, because a lot of you don't know this. You'll see people, you hear me talk about the fact that um some of the successes that I've had in my life, and at least things that I'm proud of, whether it's the businesses I own, my marriage, my kids, just some of the things that I've experienced that I'm proud of. And a lot of times we look at people and we see the after, but we don't necessarily know the before, right? And before I dive into what I'm going to share with you guys tonight, I want to be transparent with you. You're looking at a man that has endured a lot of fire. A lot of people talk about the good things in their life and what they experienced, but I want to talk about one of the trying times in my life. Um, a lot of you don't know I was in the military, was short lived. I was in the Air Force right out of high school, and I loved it, but we just didn't mesh together, right? Me and Uncle Sam just didn't quite gel, because I questioned a lot of things, and I was told that I was incorrigible. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. I didn't know what the word meant, but needless to say, I departed from the military, and my life really began to unravel. A lot of the choices and the decisions that I made in my life led to some results that I didn't like. I spent 12 and a half years in the Colorado Department of Corrections. Um, I lived in a room that was probably the size of a bathroom, and my toilet was probably about 2 feet from where I laid my head. And I spent 12 and a half years there for just poor decisions. And on those decisions were based on what I believed about myself, what I believed about life, what I believed about other people. It affected my worldview, my perspective, the whole nine yards. And the reason I'm sharing that story with you is because I want you to understand that I had to change my belief system to overcome a lot of the obstacles that, quite frankly, I put in my own way. Right? I wasn't a victim of society. I didn't end up there because the crowd I was hanging around. Yeah, we got influences, right? Close association brings about assimilation, but I was an autonomous being that had the ability to make decisions. So why did I make those specific choices and decisions that I did that landed me there? Whereas my brother made different choices and decisions and went on to college and has, a pretty successful career. What was it? And so what I'm going to share with you tonight is the science of believing. A lot of times we'll talk about belief, and it can be super nebulous, and we can incorporate things into our belief, like practices rather, whether it's meditation, whether it's visualization. I've talked to you guys about some of that stuff, whether it's journaling, whatever the tools that we utilize to bring about the manifestation of whatever it is that we desire. Um, we could sometimes do these things without understanding the depth behind it, or why are things manifesting in my life, why are they not. And so I want to take a deeper dive, but yet still keep it simple enough for us to grasp and be able to put into our everyday lives, because I believe in the simplicity of things. I think sometimes less is more. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're just going to dive in. All right, so let me see here. Luigi's got me set up there. We're going to go to desktop 2. Bada, bada, boom. gonna go to presenter mode. Boom. All right. Can everybody see me okay? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if you can see the screen. All right, perfect. So we're continuing this series on just this idea surrounding how motivation is overrated, right? And diving into what actually works, because the truth is, I am not against motivation. I think it's important. I think it's the gasoline that gets us going. Yet motivation is not going to keep us going. We have to have something else that grounds us to or tethers us to our dream, our goal, our aspirations, the things that we want to accomplish. And so we're going to dive into this topic tonight, but I want to start with saying this, not too long ago, I had a moment and it kind of caught me off guard. It was something that I needed to do, and it was really small. It would have probably like 15 minutes of actual work. And I had already told myself I was going to go ahead and handle that thing. How many of y'all had, you've had some things that, you want to do. And he's like, I'm going to tackle this. It's small. I could just knock it out of the way. But for some reason, I didn't move. I didn't take action. I didn't go do the thing that I said I wanted to do. I just kind of sat there. And I'm like, man, I started scrolling through my phone. I actually, confession, I was in the stream looking at some of the stuff that you guys were posted. I was looking at some of Adam's posts, the league. I was looking at some of you guys' stuff. And so I'm just looking at this stuff, man, and and just like tapping on it, giving it the little heart emoji or whatever. And then I started daydreaming, and before I knew it, like an hour or two had passed. And then I got up and I started doing something else. It wasn't even a thing that I had decided to do. But, later that night, as I was sitting down, when it finally got quiet enough to ask myself what was really going on, the answer was really honest, because I'm like, I'm not going to lie to me. There was a part of me that had already decided that the effort was going to be pointless. So I decided not to do it. And the realization of that for me, it hit me a little bit differently, because I thought I believed in what I was doing. I thought that I was bought in. But that moment, when I took an introspective look at it, it showed me something that, I couldn't unsee. And it's this, what I say that I believe and what I'm actually where I'm actually operating from are sometimes two different things. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about, right? You say you believe one thing, but how you show up in life is in direct opposition to what you say you believe. And here's what gets to me about that. It happened in a small moment, right? It was just this quiet decision to stay still instead of taking action. And those kind of moments, when we look at it, taking what Steve Jobs talked about, when we look back and we start connecting those dots, those moments happen all the time for all of us. And we mostly let them pass without stopping to look at it, because it's usually a small thing, right? But at the same time, those moments are doing something. They're basically building a track record. And that track record is a pretty accurate picture of what we actually believe underneath everything, what lies beneath the surface. And so that's what we're going to go tonight. We're going to look at what's underneath our decisions and our choices, because though what lies beneath those things are exactly what's running our life. All right. So we're going to dive into this science of believing. And here's the thing about wanting to change something in your life. Most people go straight to behavior, right? So it's like, I'm going to quit smoking. So I'm not picking on you, Luigi. I swear. I'll be on them sometimes. Like, I'm just using that as an example. So most of the time we think, okay, I'm going to quit smoking. So we go right to the behavior. Well, I'm not going to buy any more cigarettes. I'm going to get a patch. I'm going to do this. We focus on the behavior aspect. And so we'll adjust our routines. We'll even pick up a new habit. We'll set the goal. And we get motivated for a few weeks, right? And then something ends up happening. The motivation phase, life gets busy, and then we could end right back where we started. And man, put a 1 in the chat if you experienced that sometime in your life, and that cycle was frustrating to you, right? And the fact is, for me, it makes me feel sometimes like it's something wrong with me. Like, what's wrong with you, dude? Why can't you break the cycle, right? And it's like sometimes it feels like we just don't got what it takes to stay consistent. And what I want to offer tonight is a different starting point. That behavior that we engage in is downstream from something. And until we stop and look at what's upstream, then changing the behavior is just going to be a Band-Aid at best. It's going to be a temporary fix. And can I tell you that what's upstream is what you believe, right? What you believe about yourself, about what's possible for you, about what you actually deserve, what you're capable of. This is what we're going to dive into tonight. And by the time we're done, my hope is that you leave with a clearer picture of what is actually driving your life so that you can get the results that you actually desire. All right. Let's dive in. So number one, your life has a pattern. So just think about your life for a second. I want you to just step back from all of the daily noise and just look at the bigger picture. I want you to take this, I used this terminology before, take a third person look into your own life for a minute. Just let that run through your mind's eye. And I want you to really think about these questions that I'm going to ask you. Number one is, how do you usually respond when things get hard? Just be with that for a minute. How do you usually respond when things get hard? And for some of you, you might have had a hard day today. How did you respond? And my follow-up question is, what do you consistently follow through on? Like, what is the one thing in your life right now, like clockwork? I'm on it. Some of y'all be like, waking up. I woke up this morning. I'm consistent. And that's good. That's good. But just think about the things the actions that you take that you're really consistent on, right? That's kind of like a habit for you in your life. And I want you to take a look at, lastly, what kind of things keep getting pushed to the back burner week after week? What are those things that keep getting pushed to the back burner? There's a method to my madness, trust me, right? I'm not just waxing philosophical and having you think about these things. There's a method to my madness. The reason I'm doing that is kind of like what Steve Jobs was saying about connecting the dots. There's a pattern there. Some of you see my presentation about the patterns of disruption. There's patterns everywhere around us. So there's a pattern there. And the honest thing to say is that pattern didn't just pop up into your life, right? That thing was shaped over time. It was shaped by what you experienced, what you were around, what you watched other people do, what you learned, more specifically, what you learned that worked and what didn't work for you personally. Most of us are moving so fast that we very rarely stop to look at the patterns. But the pattern is running whether you're paying attention to it or not. When you're on your computer, man, there is an operating system that is running all the time. And your operating system, your pattern is pointing at something that I think definitely needs your attention, right? So let's talk about these results and how all this connects. All of our results are giving us a certain level of information. It's I like the term feedback. Anybody ever come to you like, man, can I give you some feedback? Or you ever use that term? Can I give you some feedback? about something, you're asking permission to just give somebody some information that you've observed that could be potentially helpful for them. And the thing about results is that our results are more honest than our intentions. This is an old saying. This is the road to hell is paved with good what? Intentions. Good intentions. You can mean well, you can plan well, you can want something so genuinely and still see a gap between what you intended and what actually played out. There's going to be that gap there. And the results give you that fuller picture. So if you look at any area of your life and some of the outcomes that keep showing up, it's worth you really paying attention to. It's kind of like the check engine light in your car, right? The check engine light is not mad at you. It doesn't hate you. It's not trying to ruin your day. It's just giving you feedback. It's like, man, listen, pay attention because there's a problem here and you're going to end up taking a bus or riding a scooter if you don't deal with it. So what you believe you deserve, what you believe is about your circumstances, your life, what you believe is actually a reality for you. It's the reality that you live out of, right? And a lot of people, myself included, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, are working hard and wondering why the results are not moving. I pay attention to some of the chats. I've been super busy on some things, but I pay attention to the chats. I don't always comment, but some of you like, man, I've done these parties, grounding parties. I sent out the text, man. I did the boom, boom, bap, the boom, boom, boom. I listened to JR, man, and Luigi, and I've been at the fireside chats, and I feel stuck like Chuck, man. Nothing is happening. For some of you, it might not even be around your business and only life. It could be in your relationships, your careers, your other businesses that you have, right? You're like, why am I not getting the results? Because the truth is you're putting forth the effort. You're putting forth real effort. You've got a real desire, but there's something underneath that is also equally real. And I think we need to identify that. So I'm a simple dude. So here's a simple way to see this. Okay. You put two people in front of the same opportunity, right? One of them really leans in, asks questions, starts thinking about how to make it work. The other person, they hesitate. They find some kind of reason to wait. They talk themselves out of it before they even tried the thing. Some of y'all probably then sent the text out to some people and then it shut you down, right? And that's just real. You got somebody that's like, yo, I'm in. Then the other person's like, yeah, let me think about it. I need to make sure this is a right decision, if this is really real. You got them people, you run into them. So let's get back to the example. So you're the same room, same opportunity, two completely different responses, right? The difference almost never comes down to skill or intelligence. It comes down to what each person believes is available to them. I'm gonna let that land. It boils down to what each person believes is available to them. There's some power in that, y'all. One of them believes this is the kind of thing that could work for someone like them. Right place, right time. This was just built for me. It's like a bespoke suit. It's custom tailored opportunity for me. The other one doesn't believe that. And that belief shows up immediately in how they move. And so you can learn a lot about what you believe by paying attention to how you respond when something good is in front of you. You catch this lady's gaze, she winks at you, and you don't go over and talk to her. The guy, he comes over to you and he finds you attractive and he starts talking to you and you just begin to start sabotaging internally because of what you believe. right? So a lot of us have never really stopped, like I was talking about earlier, to ask where our beliefs about ourselves actually come from, right? So I want to take a minute and just kind of dive into that a little bit. So listen, you didn't just wake up one day and decide what to believe. You know what? I'm just gonna this is what I'm gonna believe. This is it. When you was born, you didn't have that faculty to be able to do that. Most of what we believe came gradually through what was said to you growing up. That plays a factor, right? Um, it could be from what you observed from the people around you, um, what you saw the people around you do and accept. Right? You could learn a lot from your parents or whoever it was that raised you. It could be through your experience where you tried something and it didn't go good, it went bad, and maybe your mind quietly um filed that lesson away about what you should expect from yourself. Oh yeah, you failed at that, so you're a failure. And that plays in your psyche and how you show up. So over time, those experiences, they stopped feeling like experiences and they started feeling like facts. They became facts to you. Like, that's just how things are. And you accepted it as a truth about you. Here's a significance, because that's a significant shift. Once something feels like a fact, you stop questioning it. You stop questioning it. And what ends up happening is, guys, I'm telling you, this is the science of this. I really want you to lean into this because you're going to start understanding yourself a lot better. What happens when it becomes a fact, you start to organize your life around it. So some of what's holding you back right now is based on something that happened years ago. And you've been living like it's still defining you ever since. Man, is that resonating with somebody tonight? I just want to know, am I on target? Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down?
Kwame, you always, what do you mean? What, is that a question to ask? Of course, you're touching so many people. I'm getting private messages, bro.
All right, cool, man. I just want to check in. I just want to check in. So, I mentioned this earlier, right? We talked about the computer, but again, it's our operating system. Once something feels real to you, it runs in the background of everything you do. How you do one thing is how you do everything. You may have heard that saying, like, well, I don't agree with that. What does that mean? Well, you're going to operate off of your belief system. Your belief system is your operating system, and so you're going to operate off of what you believe, and that's going to drive how you show up in life. It shapes what you go after, what you allow in your life, what you decide is worth your time, and the energy and your energy and what you've already written off without even really trying. Right? Some of you are caught in the loop of the same, you attract the same men and the same women into your, like the trifling brother magnet. You just attract the same dudes into your life that ain't worth a damn. They're not worthy of you. You attract the same gold digging woman into your life that's not worthy of you. You sit in that cycle. Why? It's your belief, your operating system. So you could download all the dating apps, you could swipe left, swipe right, you can do all that stuff. But if you're not changing your operating system, you're going to get the same result. It's crazy to me how we will get new phones and we download a new upgrade for iOS or for Android, and we make sure our stuff is running right. But we won't update this, our minds, our belief system. It's insanity. We gotta really pay attention to this. So what you reach for, whatever you settle for, it's based off of what you believe. Again, if something feels normal, even if it's draining or painful, you're probably tolerating it because it's what feels familiar. Again, two people can be living very different lives and both feel like they are just living normally, because normal is personal. My normal is different than your normal. And it's built around what each person believes is true about themselves and what they can expect from life. So here's one of the most practical things that I can say to you tonight. And it's going to sound stupidly simple. But look, you can make a change. Imagine that, right? You can make a change. Get disciplined for a stretch, push yourself, and then weeks or months later, you look up and you realize that you've drifted right back to where you were, and you wonder what happened. You believe that you can make a change. You agree with me that you can make a change. But how many times the outcome is what I just stated? Think about it. Let me see. Think about it. Okay, let's use the example of a thermostat. You could physically walk over and change the temperature in a room. Some of y'all got smart stuff, so you can just like really sit where you're at and just pull out your phone. But let's just go with my analogy, all right? So you can walk over to your thermostat, change the temperature in the room, but if the thermostat setting itself hasn't changed, it's going to pull the temperature back to wherever it was set. If that thermostat is broken, you could change the temperature all you want. You could set it to 60, but if it's internally broken and stuck on 64, it's never going to adjust the temperature in the room. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to maintain the temperature in the room. But when it's broken, it's not going to do that. When it's malfunction, it's not going to do that. So it needs to get serviced. Your internal setting works the same way. Your life is going to keep coming back to your default patterns, what feels normal to you. The familiar is comfortable, right? Even when it's not good for you. And, you might be sitting up eating chips and cookies and ice cream. This is not good for me, but man, it tastes so good. And it does. But if you're pre-diabetic, man, what is that saying? Right? So until the settings change, the correction is just on autopilot. The goal is to change the setting. And that's what this whole thing is about tonight. Okay, I'm gonna move along because I want to make sure I want to get you to the landing. We're about 3/4 of the way there. All right. So let's talk about these results that keep showing up, these patterns, right? So when the same result keeps showing up in your life, no matter what you try, can we agree that there's something that's producing it, right? So you could work hard and still hit that same ceiling. You could try a different approach. You're going to run into that same exact wall. And after you do that enough times, you start to take it personal. Like you're just wired a certain way, and this is as far as you go, but you've been trained to do that. They say they train these. If you've ever been to the circus, you see an elephant, and they have this thin little cord that's tethered to this little post. And the elephant doesn't move. Now he's strong enough to just rip the whole post out of the ground. But what they did was they started off training with a chain, and he tried to pull against the chain, and it wouldn't move. And they kept him on the chain. Then it got something. They did a thicker rope, and then it got down. They could put dental floss on that thing. It's not going to move because he was trained to stay put. And so we've been trained to show up a certain way. So here's what I think is actually happening when we go through and we keep operating on that same pattern. The results are consistent because the belief underneath is consistent. If you think in terms of a car, our belief is the engine. And the engine keeps producing the same output until something changes in the engine. Once you see it that way, it becomes less about fault and more about understanding. The pattern has a source, and knowing that particular truth gives you something specific to address rather than just trying harder or hoping for a different outcome. What they call that insanity, right? So the starting point is always going to be awareness, which it sounds obvious, and most people tend to move past that because it's familiar. Familiarity breeds contempt, as they say. But real awareness means getting specific. And where do you pull back right before a decision? What kinds of opportunities have you passed on more than once? What conversations keep getting delayed? What areas of your life do you feel the most stuck in? Because once you start understanding that for you, you're going to understand it for other people as well. And you'll be shocked at how well you begin to connect with other people. So when you get that specific, that granular, it stops being this kind of general sense that, you know, something's off, and it actually becomes information that serves you. You know, something that you could basically look at and say, okay, this is where the pattern is clear for me. And there's also something that begins to shift in you when you begin to get really honest with yourself. Because I used to be that guy on the call, my man, you gonna run for 90 days. I'm raising my hand, I'm throwing up the emojis. We're gonna talk to 3 people a day. Yeah, man. And a week goes by, I talk to 1 person. Tell the truth. Tell the truth, man. You ain't got to front, you ain't got to lie to kick it, right? And so I just encourage you, you can no longer just rest on, well, I didn't know, right? You got to take responsibility. And when you begin to do that, you got to take responsibility for your own beliefs. And from that space is where you'll begin to start seeing some movement in your life, all right? So awareness is going to open the door for you. Action, we did a training on that before, right? Actions where you actually walk through it. So you could understand the patterns really deeply. You could journal about them. You could talk about them and still stay in the same place. The change is going to happen when you take a step that doesn't match the old pattern, right? So you got to do something radically different. When you do something different, even though the familiar, the pull of that familiar thing is real and strong, you're going to get a different outcome. And that step that you take is going to feel off because it's uncomfortable, because it's not what you're used to. And it's like, it's going to feel like you're doing something wrong. And, you know, if you're right-handed and you're writing with your left hand, it's going to feel off. It's not going to feel comfortable, but you can get used to it. And you will get used to it if you push through it. Okay. So one concrete move in a new direction is worth more than any amount of insight about what needs to change. It's about the action. So here's what starts to happen when you take that step. You do something differently and something different comes back. Maybe the result's going to be small for you. Maybe it's just this quiet sense of, man, I actually did that. I did it today, right? But what's happening in your subconscious mind is registering that. And now what you're developing is proof, right? You have real evidence from your own life that something different is possible for you. And that evidence starts doing something to what you believe. That's how belief, this is the science behind it, Joe. That's how belief actually shifts over time. Someone talking you up and, you know, is not going to do it. Again, motivation is not going to do it. A good speech is not going to do it. What does it is seeing proof from your own experience that the old story was incomplete because you're questioning the old beliefs. Every time you move differently and see a different result, you're laying a new foundation. And so as you're, I think I got about 3 more slides, y'all. So as you're thinking and your actions start to line up or come into alignment with this new pattern, something really interesting begins to happen. You start to look at the things you're used to just walking right past. Conversations that you'll, how can I put this? You start having conversations that could really go somewhere, right? And those opportunities that been kind of sitting there, the opportunities for you to, whether it's present your business or to take action in some area where you've been stagnant at, all those opportunities that you've been waiting on, you start taking action on them. Those doors are going to start to open up for you, and you'll start seeing possibilities where before you all you saw was walls. So what changed? I mean, because the opportunities were always there, right? What changed is you. Your alignment changed. You're moving differently. You're paying attention differently, and you're responding in a way that you weren't capable of before because you weren't examining why you were doing the things that you're doing. People describe that I've worked with and coached. They said, "Man, Kwame, something just opened up for me, man." And what's really happening is that they stepped into a different level of operation. And at that level, they got access to things that were always available, but invisible when they were operating from the old operating system, right? So what you consistently give your attention to shapes how you think, right? What you notice and how you act is all based on what you're consistently giving your attention to, what you're believing. And over time, that starts moving in the direction of you start moving in the direction of whatever's occupying your focus. There's a concept called sympathetic resonance, or some people just call it resonance. And that's when something is tuned into a certain, okay, pun intended, frequency, right? It naturally connects to that same frequency. Your life has a similar quality. So what you consistently think about and you act on, you start to encounter more of. You respond to it faster. You move toward it without even trying. It's like it becomes, that terms, it becomes second nature. And so the practical question is really simple. Where has most of your attention been going? Because the answer to that question will tell you a lot more about the direction your life has been moving in. Right? I wanted to go deeper in that, but I don't got the time. We'll have to pick that up in part 2. All right. So this is where everything what we talked about is we're going to bring the plane in for landing. And I want you to personalize this. Again, I want you to step back from your everyday routine. And I want you again to look at the bigger picture of your life. What keeps repeating? Where have you been getting that same result no matter how many times you've adjusted your approach? What area of your life has felt stuck the longest? Whatever comes up for you, I want you to sit with that over the next minute and really consider it when this call is over, because that's a pattern, and that pattern is pointing you to somewhere. They always say success leaves clues. Your patterns and your belief are leaving clues as well. And it's pointing you back to something you believe about yourself in that specific area, about what you think is realistic for you, what you think you deserve, what you think you are actually capable of. And all it takes is just one honest answer. You don't need a long list, man. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Just one honest answer is going to give you a real starting point. And specific is where things actually began to take shape. So this is a last slide. Whew, boy, I was running, y'all. And so everything we talked about tonight is only going to be useful to you if it leads to something. There's a step you already know you need to take, and you knew it before you got on this call tonight. So for some of you, this is just like confirmation, like, man, Kwame, you've been reading my mail. And it could be that conversation that you've been putting off, or a habit needs to go or that needs to start. And the way you've been showing up that you already know is not working is where the adjustment needs to take place. You don't gotta tackle it all at one time. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Don't mean to wax cheesy with you, but just that one step is enough to start, man. And one move that doesn't match the old pattern, right? So the question that I'm gonna leave you with is, what is the one thing? I just read this book called The One Thing. What is the one thing you're gonna do this week that's different from what you have been doing? And get specific with it. Give it a day, give it a time, and that one step is where tonight is going to become real for you. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Back to you, Luigi.
All I could say is, first of all, yeah, everyone, let's get on the call here. We have some people want to open up their cameras. Let's get on the call. I'm not going to talk tonight because I always talk a lot, on these calls there. I'm going to give the little bit of space that we have to other people to share some comments on tonight's call. I mean, what you got out of it. Let's have some new speakers that I know that some of us we speak more often than others, but that's okay. Do I have any volunteers who want to share some thoughts on tonight's call? What you thought about his teaching? Because for those who don't know it, Kwame is also a pastor, and he's a marketer, he's a pastor, he's a brother, he's a father, he's a good friend, he's a good person. All right, and you can feel that in his teachings. Like there's some wisdom in his teachings, right? It's not just motivation or mindset. Well, it's a little bit of everything, right? Mindset, motivation, but it's
Yeah.
also some kind of calling. All right, and I think that this call was so important, though, for me, honestly. It brings everything back into perspective. Like what we're doing with Holy Life, we always say it and we'll repeat it. The product needs to be good. If the product is not good, we're all wasting our time on this call. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, the product, we already know it's good. Then after we can talk about money on a call. Yes, but money just by itself won't hit the nail either. So it's everything, it's like the money, it's the product, it's the mindset, it's the rank calls that we do, it's the fireside chat, it's a practitioners call, like we're working together so hard as a community, and your call is so wonderful, and I know that I got some value on it, and so has another good friend of mine too. So hey, who wants to close a couple of comments here on tonight's call? Go ahead.
Looks like Tanya has her hand up.
Go ahead, Tanya. You're muted, Tanya.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this powerful presentation. Totally resonate with it. And, we are so supported by the frequencies to change our patterns, because the frequencies come into our body. And through that, we already change the pattern, because the neuroplasticity also opens up, and we are changing a pattern of also not caring for ourselves. We change the pattern of maybe going to a lot of practitioners. We change the pattern by taking these devices into our own hand, by putting our feet on it and putting it around our eyes, whatever, and by beginning to share with it, by coming onto these calls as well. These are all little pattern changes. And when we change one pattern, there's like more patterns change, right? And we can keep each other accountable with that too, because we can fall into new patterns. Yeah, and to always interrupt the patterns, that we stay fresh and alive. And these frequency devices that we've got here and the community are so supportive to us to really deeply change all beliefs around aging, beliefs around money, beliefs around sickness, beliefs around everything, relating, connecting, literally everything. So thank you for this presentation, Kwame, today. That was absolutely, totally powerful and on point. And thank you for every one of you who are here, changing the patterns together.
Thank you. All right, one last speaker. Who wants to close up this call? Do we have anybody else that wants to unmute and say some thoughts on tonight's call? Well, if nobody wants to step up, is everyone?
Hey, Luigi.
Yes, go ahead.
Chris and Patricia and Victoria.
Hello there.
Kwame, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Kwame, that was an absolutely amazing call. We haven't been here very long, but what we have found with the community has been outstanding. Like nothing ever we've had before. But your talk tonight, and I actually directly correlated to the video that you played earlier, Luigi, is connecting the dots. And really looking at what is causing the blocks or the stoppages in whatever you're doing, whether it's with Holy Life, whether it's your everyday life, your finances, your relationship, whatever the case may be. You always come back to finding what it is that is stopping you from moving forward. And tonight you brought that forward for me is consistency. Really is. And I thank you for that.